The Oklahoma City Thunder. This is actually not as complicated as what I thought it was going to be in terms of conversation, because they really only have like a couple of things here, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Kaysen Wallace, Lou Dort, that's their core to me. Then they have Kenrich Williams, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams. Ousmane Dieng as well is in the mix here. And then like Lindy Waters, seems like a great culture guy to have around. They have number 12 in the draft this year. They have a ton of future picks. I believe they have 5 future picks forthcoming, plus all of their own picks and a bunch of swaps. They have Josh Giddey, who is 1 year, $8 million. Then he's a restricted free agent and he's extension eligible this summer. Let's start here. We talked about this last episode. If you were building for the future with Oklahoma City while also trying to prioritize the now, what is the player type that you're looking for to complement Shai, Jalen, Chet, and Kaysen and Lou? And how aggressive are you getting in prioritizing now versus later?
So I think I'm getting more aggressive this offseason than I would have said 6 months ago. And something you've talked about recently, and then listening to podcasts and just thinking about some of these things, when you have a chance, you have to go for it. And I do not care how I realize the West is going to be loaded, but the idea that you are sure that this thing is going to last for 10 years, I don't think that that's something you can bank on. And so my thing is, I think they're going to be good enough right now. We just saw it play out. So if you can go find a physical front court player that at least does a little bit of dribble, pass, and shoot to play with those guys, I would aggressively attack that player, add him to this roster, move off Josh Giddey, and I would go for it. And listen, like, you have a ton of flexibility still. So if it's wrong, like they traded for Gordon Hayward, and like we continue to bring this up. Nobody even cares about what they gave up in the trade. Like, they have so many assets. Like, it's okay that they made a mistake with that one. But I wouldn't play around with this. And I know you can say internal growth and all of that stuff. I would be aggressive this offseason if I was Sam Presti.
I would also be aggressive this offseason. The name that I brought up on the last episode was Julius Randle.
Yeah.
Right. Julius Randle, to me, ticks a lot of boxes playing next to Chet. Allows you to kind of have that flexibility to go big and small. You can play him at the 5 if Chet has foul trouble. You can play him. You can play Chet with like the Jalen Williams at the 4 lineups if necessary, right? He's the kind of like chess piece that I really like for them. And I like that he does only have 1 year left on his deal. Like, maybe he wouldn't be super happy there, but his contract to me like dovetails nicely with when you have to start paying the Oklahoma City guys, basically. Yeah. I agree with you that it's a 4, not a position locked 5. It can be like a combo 4-5.
100. I would like that even more if possible.
It can't be a position locked 5. Like, I've seen people mention like Zach Edey for them. I don't think that really works. And I don't think it's what their strategy has been during this build, where the goal is like dribble, pass, shoot across the court. That's the other thing I like about Randle. Dribble, pass, shoot like everywhere. Right.
Yeah.
So, Dirty Dancer brings up like kind of my idea here of, is there a world where you could use the Thunder and the Nets to maybe do like, I just said like Mikal to the Knicks, like, isn't something that I'm like super high on, but if you could combine like, getting assets from the Thunder to send to the Nets, it's draft capital, and like sending a couple picks to the Nets on your own, that feels more interesting to me.
Yeah.
So my next kind of player type. It's hard to find like the player type that works for them that's actually going to be like available. Lowry is the perfect name for them.
Mm-hmm.
Lowry is like the ideal guy for them.
Yes.
But again, as we said in the Knicks thing, I do not think Lowry Markkanen is going to be available this summer. I think they're going to renegotiate and extend him. They need to find like their Aaron Gordon-y kind of player to me, though. Like that's their next piece of the puzzle. They need to find the like move piece or the physical, guy who can come in and like really be aggressive and kind of give them that rebounding edge more than anything. Like they need to rebound. They played small in the playoffs. Like they need to be able to have somebody with more size in the front court above all to me.
And those players aren't easy to find. Like I've continued to search and like if you guys see me looking down, I'm scrolling the 30 teams in the NBA and just going through their rosters in my head and going, who are those guys, whether they're available or not, just like who is the guy that fits into the mold and is the player that we're talking about. And I can't come up with any others that I feel like really make a ton of sense and would be even reasonably available.
Yeah. I've seen them connected with like Jared Allen and Nick Claxton, like in theory, right? Like that doesn't really line up to me. Doesn't really just like make sense across the board. We brought up Denny time, like Denny, sure, great, but I don't
think the
idea
idea with like Jared Allen, him and Chet play together. Is that the idea?
I think so, and I don't love that either. Yeah, I think that's the plan, and I'm not a fan of that. Like to me, like Michael Porter Jr. is like not as aggressive as you'd want on the glass, and like I think Denver's. We'll talk about this when we do Denver, but like I think Denver is going to like run this back, like for the most part.
Yeah, I think so. Also,
that's a guess. Like we'll talk about Denver later, but yeah, you need like an aggressive rebounder in some way, shape, or form who can like help you, compete on the glass and like be physical and strong. And like I just don't know that like Nick Claxton doesn't line up for me playing next to Chet. Like he just doesn't. And Randall's like kind of the perfect, guy to tick the box for me, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's not a. I was just gonna look at like defensive rebounding leaders in the NBA this year and see if there were, names that, because like,
I mean, like another name I've gotten is like Isaiah Stewart or Wendell Carter.
Okay,
like those guys that can like space, like dribble, pass, shoot, bigger, smaller bigs, let's call them.
Okay, so I didn't want to say Isaiah Stewart because I'm the Pistons guy and I don't like to bring Pistons into the podcast when I don't have to. Isaiah Stewart is in theory what we're talking about, but I don't think Stu is dribble, pass, shoot enough to fit in with the Thunder.
I agree with that.
And I think he could work as a 4-man better with Chet than like what Detroit's tried because none of their bigs can do anything skill wise. So his lack of skill really shows up. Next to Chet, he does all the things you would want. And I've always said, I think Stewart is a playoff third big. I don't think he's the guy in a starting lineup. He just, the shot has come around, but I don't think he can really put it on the deck and pass it the way you would want. So like I look at like Bobby Portis as a name, like just as I look at defensive rebounding leaders, from this season, he shoots it a little bit.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
What do you think about? Well, sorry, this is just playoffs. Let me correct.
No, that's not. It's not like a bad name to me. It's not. It's not a bad name at all. Bobby Portis.
He makes up for things defensively. Where does that? Where we've talked about the Bucks trading Portis in their preview too.
Yeah.
So is there what on this roster is enticing for them? Does Giddey make sense in Milwaukee in some capacity?
Not unless they're like completely rejumping this thing, and I don't really see that.
Isaiah
Derek Reynolds brought up Tristan Da Silva. I'll say this. I love Tristan. The one thing he doesn't really do is defensive rebound.
Yeah.
Like,
And not the
I
most
love it.
physical play, not the most like if you ask me for Tristan da Silva's two biggest knocks, it would be physicality and defensive rebounding.
So a name that people have brought up, like Alex Currit in the comments brings up John Collins. I've brought up John Collins before.
Okay.
I am skeptical that they would want to pay John Collins 26 million a year, which is what he has left for the next 3 years, basically. I don't think that they would find that valuable if you made me bet.
Yeah.
Given that they still have like all that money in that third year that they're gonna have to pay Chet and Jalen and Shea, I think the third year would probably be a tough one for somebody like John Collins at that price point.
Okay, let me throw out this name. I think you're gonna say no, but I'm just looking at defensive. Kyle Kuzma.
More interesting than what you would think, but like in like aggressive on the glass for sure. Dribble, pass, shoot for sure. Switchable.
Does Kyle Kuzma do what PJ Washington just did for Dallas if he goes to Oklahoma City?
I mean, like it was different in LA, but was valuable as like a player on a title team in LA.
Like, does he?
It was more as like a sixth man, but like it was, he was able to do some of that and was switchable. The question is like, is he willing to come in and take a step back from what he's been?
Sure.
Like, because Jalen is better than he is. Shea is certainly better than he is. Chet is better. Like, is he willing to be the fourth guy? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
People brought up Tari Eason. Like Tari Eason is a great name to me.
Like
it's like kind of the ideal name in a lot of ways to me.
Yeah.
I just don't think that Houston is like, I think they could offer Houston like 3 first rounders and they'd be like, no.
I mean, that's the thing with OKC, right? Is like when we're talking about being aggressive, they just throw something silly at a team to get the guy they want if they can pinpoint them. And you hope that you can just way over, quote unquote, overpay. But for them, it doesn't even matter because they have so many of these picks.
Yeah. And you know, Jabari Smith's another guy. You know, Billy in the comments brings that up. Like Jabari to me is not movable. Jeremy Sohan. Look, like they have 4 and 8. If they picked guys at 4 and 8 that they thought didn't fit with Sohan but did fit with Victor, I might be willing to hear that out. I might be willing to hear out like a weird Giddy and stuff for Sohan deal, right? Like something strange like that. The next speaking of Giddy, right? Yeah, like Minnesota, like obviously has Nas Reed and
they're not going
to
trade him.
Towns. I think they run it back after
this.
What has happened this year, even with their weird ownership situation. Let's talk about Giddy because I think Giddy is like really the other shoe to drop here. If I am them, I am moving Josh Giddey this summer.
I agree.
It has nothing to do with like what, you know, all the stuff that came, you know, that was social media reported about him this year. It's just not a great basketball fit. Yeah. It's just not. He is an on-ball player that has been surpassed by Shea and Jalen and like needs to find a place where he can have the ball in his hands. And it's just not going to happen in Oklahoma City. Where he is really valuable is when he has the ball in his hands and can take advantage of his vision and his height and his passing and playmaking ability. He needs to find an answer as like a finisher around the basket beyond that little floater. And like, I would love to see him shoot. But I am still like I think Josh Giddey can be a valuable player in the NBA playoffs. To me, it's probably something in the value of like a late first round pick. Like if I'm Utah, I am absolutely like doing number 28 or whatever they have for Josh Giddey. Right.
Yeah. No, Utah makes sense. Yeah. I'm with you. Like I know I'm sure I specifically come off as a Josh Giddey hater. Like I went on a Oklahoma City podcast and they asked me for a bold take, and I said that there would be a playoff game where Giddey didn't play any minutes, and we didn't quite get to that, but we did eventually see him get taken out of the starting lineup and Isaiah Joe inserted. I think like he's probably not good enough to be a primary guy on a really really good team, but I think there's limited, but there's some role, some space for him in the NBA to be a contributor. He just kind of figured
Yeah.
that out, and I think we agree. It's not in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, like to me, it's people bring up Washington, like Dirty Dancer brings up Washington for Giddey. That makes sense because Will
Yeah,
Dawkins, played a big role in drafting Josh Giddey in Oklahoma City. Certainly, they could use a long-term answer at point guard if they don't use it. Use this top 2 pick at point, which it doesn't seem like they're going to. But they have 27 in this draft as well. Like that's the thing. Like Utah and Washington, like to me, they could give up those late picks to Oklahoma City. And if Oklahoma City could find a way to like forward it along
yeah,
to get
pay it
something
forward.
else,
Yeah.
like that's the kind of deal that lines up to me for Josh.
Yeah, I like Josh in Washington. I think that would be interesting. And I think Washington could use somebody like that, just a table setter that they could put some real interesting lineups out there with all like the size they have on the like put him and Bilal and Kisper and
Denny.
Denny and you saw have I know I'm getting too many
And if
players
you
now.
draft like Alex Sarr or something like
Yeah,
that, like you
yeah.
can go
Or
super big. You can do like a lot of different
I,
creative
I'm
things
not
there.
saying that team like listen, I'm not we're not saying that team gets
It's
to
not a
like
good team.
no, but it no, let's just say like people are gonna act like we're saying they're a play-in. We're not saying that. It's just I would watch that a little bit. I'd be intrigued by like that. That would be a starting point. You start to build it out, flesh it out, and figure things out.
And then, like, if you're Utah and you're building around like Keontae George
Yeah.
and you have Colin Sexton on the roster, Giddey's like kind of a nice compliment to both of those guys in the backcourt, I
Yeah.
think, right? So, as a table setter, playmaker, and letting Keontae especially kind of do what he does best, which is score.
Yeah.
So that ticks the box for me in a big way. Andrew Farnsworth asks about Brandon Ingram. Absolutely not here for me. That'd be too much like ball stopping, mid range gunnery kind of thing. Um, the other, 2 things to hit on before we leave with Oklahoma City. 3 things. First, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams. All of 3 of these guys are extension eligible right now. I would try to do an extension with all of them.
Sure.
It's just what is the number? Like if I could get Joe and Wiggins for under 10, like I'm probably in on it. I do you like Aaron Wiggins like I do? Like I think Aaron Wiggins is like pretty good.
No, I think he's a good player. Yeah. I mean, I would prioritize Isaiah Joe above all 3 of these guys, but like I've just been on the Isaiah Joe bandwagon for a while now. So, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't prioritize Aaron Wiggins. I think all 3 of these guys are good players that make a lot of sense for this specific team and organization and how they want to play. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you there.
Yeah, like Aaron Wiggins to me strikes me as like next summer's Najee Marshall.
No, that's what like I do look at I look at like a team like how could the Pistons get Aaron Wiggins? Like how could they finagle this to get him on their team? Like that's it because I think he's good.
Yeah.
My
And
question,
by like next summer's Najee Marshall, by that I mean like guy who just like it's a struggle to get him on the court because your team
yes,
has so many wings, but like is actually good at basketball and like can find, you know, it's like hard to find. So with Wiggins, the thing is that, with Wiggins and Joe specifically, they have the ability to like decline a team option and put them into restricted free agency this summer, or they can take like the $1 million thing this year and like extend off of that. Like there are a lot of different things that they can do. But if you choose to like decline the option in some way this year and make them restricted, you're not losing cap space this summer necessarily because their cap hold would be like relatively similar. but you are losing flexibility for the future in some way, where you probably would need to like have a free agent locked in that you feel really good about, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, and if I'm those 2 guys, I'm trying and if I'm their representation, I'm trying to find a way to get to unrestricted free agency. Like, I'm trying to take that path to go get paid because I think both of those guys would get some pretty good contracts on the open market.
Yeah, like to me, the question is like, can you extend? And both these guys, I don't know about Joe, but I think particularly Aaron Wiggins. Like Aaron Wiggins, if you did like this year at 2 and then you extended off of that like 2 years, 20 million or something, where you just get him locked in on money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That feels like a reasonable deal. Or maybe you do it where it's spread out. Like you say, like, look, we have $20 million set aside for you. You can take a little bit extra this year. We're willing to give you, 777 in order to reduce the cap hit into the future.
Yeah.
Or we can do the 2 million this year and then 10 the next 2 years. If you think it's more valuable that way, depending on what you'd want. That feels like the more tenable move. With Aaron Wig or with Isaiah Joe, I wonder if like he is just such a real shooter and is so valuable that like he might not be able to sign like a real like a low below market extension number.
Yeah. I think I'm on the same page with that. Yeah, with Wiggins, you try to lock something in like that. I think Joe's going to get real money. But again, I will readily admit I'm as high as anybody on Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, like even Wiggins, you could do like we have 25 set aside for you. We'll do like 9 9 or instead of 2 13 13 or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
I like
Right.
that a lot more for Aaron Wiggins than the bigger jump. I kind of like spreading it out over 3.
I think I do too. But it'd be big, you'd have to really believe in Wiggins. And I do. Like I think Wiggins can play.
And it probably
Um,
also depends on who you think you're going to keep, who you're going to bring in. Cause like you said, you don't want to give him that contract if he's not going to play. Like if you don't think that he's going to be
yeah.
able to get minutes, if you're going to keep all these other guard wings and you're going to bring one in and you're going to draft one or, whatever, then that plays into this calculation also.
Yep. Uh, yeah, Isaiah Joe, I just wonder, there's probably a deal to be done there. It just might be, a little bit more than what you would hope. Uh, Cap space, any names that make sense for them off the top of your head, free agency wise?
No, I'll have to pull the list back up.
Like Malik Monk, Isaiah Hartenstein, we kind of talked about within the
Yeah.
Knicks section,
Yeah.
but like not for me. I wouldn't want the position locked 5 if I was them. I would want like a more flexible 4-5 kind of guy.
Like, listen, I love Malik Monk, but I'm not sure that's necessary.
Yeah, like I'm assuming, Malik Monk doesn't make sense for me. Like I'm assuming Siakam is re-signing in Indiana. Like that makes way more sense to me than him hitting free agency. I mean, look, like if they loved Pat Williams or something crazy,
I was just about to say him as I'm scrolling here. Like, that's the first name that's jumped off as I've gone through things.
that doesn't feel great to me, but whatever. Like the last name here, and I would be pretty stunned if they would go down this road. Like Miles Bridges is a good rebounder, dribble, pass, shoot, like 4-man as an athlete that you can run with and fit. It's just not like I'm not signing Miles Bridges if I'm another organization. Given the way Oklahoma City is operated, I would be surprised to see them sign him.
What about Obi Toppin?
That's an interesting name for sure. I think Obi's been pretty valuable. Obi would fit really well with Chet, actually. Obi's actually a pretty cool name for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Restricted free agency, just so everybody like that it would have to play through that.
Yeah.
Derrick Jones Jr.
Great name, but doesn't have like the dribble pass shoot that they look for. And they have like perimeter defenders to me.
Good
Like
cutter
you have
off
Lou
the ball,
Dort, you
though.
have Jalen. Yeah, like I don't know if you need that. Yeah, like to me, like maybe it's a trade. Like you can find a way to use cap space via trade.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of what I'm suggesting with Julius Randle. I feel like we kind of talked about that a little bit more. Last thing would be the draft, number 12.
I mean, we say the same name all the time.
I'm not off of it. Like, I think Filipowski makes sense for them. I will say, I think I would take Saloon over Filipowski if I was them now.
Okay.
Aggressive, physical, like long, 6'9" to 6'10", 7'2" wingspan, plays with a great motor. Like, you can envision him developing into the kind of guy that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
For the 4 spot, right? Like that's an interesting one to me.
No, I like it. Yeah, that's the role. That's the archetype is definitely Saloon. So
yeah, but Filipowski, I would like it. Cody Williams, like, pair him with Jalen if you want to do that. I think there's a chance he's there. Dirty Dancer says, like, it just feels so high for what Flip is. It's really hard to find triple pass shoot bigs, guys. It's just really hard. We talk about it every show. It's really hard. And look, like, they have Ousmane Dieng too. Connor brings up Ousmane Dieng. I've never been a Dieng guy. Never really been for me, having seen him over here. I understand that they drafted him quite high and traded for him and all that stuff. But yeah, like, I haven't. Anytime I've watched him, I've come away like a little bit disappointed across his game.
Yeah, I'm not a Ousmane Dieng guy either. So like, I'm not gonna go crazy.
To me, an off season that is a win for them is getting a great prospect at 12 and ending up with like Julius Randle or someone like that.
Yeah.
If they can find a way to like swing that'd be great. A solid off season for them is just retaining everybody, getting Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe locked into a good deal, and rolling from there.
Yeah. Listen, and I get it. Like, young, internal growth. You've went through the struggles. You'll come back. You'll learn from it. I understand that play. I want to see him be aggressive. I want to see him go for it.
Yeah.
So
here's the last fun thing I'll say. What if you did Giddey for like 27 or so and Tyler Smith fell there?
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's actually like kind of a fun outcome to me.
Yes, I agree.